کا پیامبر کا راستہ حسنین کا علی کا پیامبر کا راستہ حسنین کا علی کا پیامبر کا راستہ ہے ایک فاطمہ کے بڑے گھر کا راستہ حسنین کا علی کا پیامبر کا راستہ اور اپنا لیا ہے میں نے جو حیدر کا راستہ اپنا لیا ہے میں نے جو حیدر کا راستہ جبریل پوچھتے ہیں بڑے گھر کا راستہ اپنا لیا ہے میں نے جو حیدر کا راستہ جبریل پوچھتے ہیں میرے گھر کا راستہ حسنین کا علی کا پیامبر کا راستہ او پوچھو علی سے کیا ہے محمد کی منزل پوچھو علی سے کیا ہے محمد کی منزل او دریا ہی جانتا ہے سمندر کا راستہ حسنین کا علی کا پیامبر کا راستہ اور یہ شوق جا نثار کی معراج ہی تو ہے یہ شوق جا نثار کی معراج ہی تو ہے جو ایک کا ہے وہ ہے 72 کا راستہ حسنین کا علی کا پیامبر کا راستہ او بنت اسد سے حضرت جبریل نے کہا او بنت اسد سے حضرت جبریل نے کہا او دیوار کعبہ تکتی ہے حیدر کا راستہ حسنین کا علی کا بلندر سلامات
جناب علی عباس نقوی اور جناب جعفر نقوی سے درخواست ہے کہ مرثیہ خانے کے لیے تشریف لائیں.
نعرہ صلوات. چار مسٹر پیش قدم. کہیں حشم کہیں شبیر بن گئے زینب کہیں حشم کہیں شبیر بن
گئے
زین اور کہیں بادین کی تصویر بن گئے کہیں بادین کی تصویر بن گئے مگر یزید کے دربار میں خدا کی قسم مگر یزید کے دربار میں خدا کی قسم علی کی بولتی تصویر بن گئے زینب کہیں حشم کہیں شبیر ایک امام وقت کو میں سارباں کیسے کہوں ایک امام وقت کو میں سارباں کیسے کہوں اور عظمتوں کے عرش کو میں آسماں کیسے عظمتوں کے عرش کو میں آسماں کیسے کہوں اور جس نے کی ہو ذہن عالم کو توانا جس نے کی ہو ذہن عالم کو توانا عطا ارے میں اسے اپنی زبان سے ناتواں کیسے کہوں ایک امام وقت کو سلام کے چند اشعار خود سمجھ لوگے مسلمانوں پیمبر کون ہے خود سمجھ لوگے مسلمانوں پیمبر کون ہے ارے خود سمجھ لوگے مسلمانوں پیمبر کون ہے ارے پہلے بس اتنا سمجھ جاؤ کہ حیدر کون ہے، خود سمجھ لوگے مسلمانوں پیغمبر کون۔ ایک اور مطلب پیش ہے، ارے تم ابھی تک بھی نہ پہچانے کہ حیدر کون ہے، تم ابھی تک بھی نہ پہچانے کہ حیدر کون ہے، ارے یہ تو بت بھی جانتے ہیں دست داور کون ہے، خود سمجھ لوگے مسلمانوں پیغمبر کون۔ اور شعر پیش قائد بھائی، ارے اے ابو طالب تیری اس گود پر لاکھوں سلام، اے ابو طالب تیری اس گود پر لاکھوں سلام، سب سے پہلے جس نے پہچانا پیغمبر کون ہے، خود سمجھ لوگے مسلمانوں پیغمبر اور شعر پیش کون ہے، ارے سورہ کوثر ہزاروں بار بامانی پڑھو، سورہ کوثر ہزاروں بار بامانی پڑھو، ارے تب کہیں جا کر یہ سمجھو گے کہ اصغر کون ہے، خود سمجھ لوگے مسلمانوں پیغمبر کون ہے، ارے باٹنے بیٹھے شبے عاشور جب جنت حسین، ارے باٹنے بیٹھے شبے عاشور جب جنت حسین، ارے دی صدا تقدیر نے حر دلاور کون ہے، خود سمجھ لوگے مسلمانوں پیغمبر کون ہے، ارے جب فرشتے مجھ سے پوچھیں گے بتا اپنا ایمان، جب فرشتے مجھ سے پوچھیں گے بتا اپنا ایمان، اور چیر کر سینہ کہوں گا دیکھ پڑھ کر کون ہے، خود سمجھ لوگے مسلمان۔ آخری شعر پیش ہے، پیغمبر کون ہے، ارے ہاتھ ملتی پھر رہی ہے کیوں بہن عباس کے، ارے ہاتھ ملتی پھر رہی ہے کیوں بہن عباس کے، جانے اس جلتے ہوئے خیمے کے اندر کون ہے، خود سمجھ مکتب پیش مسلمانوں پیغمبر کون ہے، ارے گودیوں میں ماؤں کی کرتے ہیں جو ماتم رضا، گودیوں میں ماؤں کی کرتے ہیں جو
ماتم رضا،
ارے کون بتلاتا ہے ان بچوں کو سرور کون ہے، خود سمجھ لو گے مسلمان۔ اب تمام حضرات سے درخواست ہے ایک مرتبہ سورہ الحمد جناب رضا سرسوی صاحب مرحوم کے لیے ایصال کر دیں، اور تم حاضر مجلس کے تمام مرحومین کے لیے۔ سر لے کے شہ کا شام کو جب اہل شر چلے، غل تھا کٹا کے سر کو شہ بحر بر چلے، گھر کو لٹا کے اپنے وہ شیریں کے گھر
چلے،
اور اہل بیت پیٹتے ہم رائے سر
چلے،
اور اہل بیت پیٹتے ہم رائے
سر چلے،
ارے جب زہر کو ہو لشکر اہل
ستم گیا،
اور جس نیزے پر حسین کا سر تھا وہ
تھام گیا،
جس نیزے پر
حسین کا
سر تھا وہ
تھام گیا،
ارے خیمے غرض وہیں ہوئے آدھا کے سب بپا، نیزوں کے نیچے اہل حرم گرد اشقیا بالائے کو رہتی تھی شیریں
جو با وفا،
ارے تھی یاد شاہ دل میں جو خواب اس کو آ
گیا،
ارے دیکھا حسین کو کہ وہ مہمان
آتے ہیں،
ارے لیکن عجیب شکل سے تشریف
لاتے ہیں،
لیکن عجیب شکل سے تشریف
لاتے ہیں،
ارے گھبرا کے اٹھی خواب سے شوہر سے یہ کہا جا زیر کو اترا ہے فرزند مصطفیٰ، خوش خوش چلا مکان سے وہ مرد باصفا، پہنچا وہ زیر کو تو دیکھا یہ
ماجرا،
ارے خیمے بپا ہیں اور ہے کثرت سپاہ
کی،
ارے ایک سو سے آ رہی ہے صدا
کی،
ایک سو سے آ رہی، دو بند ہو رہے ہیں، صدا کی، ارے ناگاہ زبان معجزے سے بولا شہ کا سر مہمان کا سلام لے اے مرد خوش سیر شیریں کنیز خاص ہمارے ارے کیا میرے آنے کی نہیں اس کو ہوئی
خبر
ارے بعد السلام کہنا کہ تجھ کو
بلایا ہے
ارے تو جس کی منتظر تھے وہ مہمان آیا ہے تو جس کی منتظر تھے وہ مہمان
آیا ہے
ارے شیریں گئی وہاں تو یہ ساما نظر پڑا نیزے پسر حسین کا تاباں نظر پڑا کنبا نبی کا باسرے اور یہاں نظر پڑا ہر ایک غم سے چاک گریبان
نظر پڑا
ارے سر پیٹ کر پکاری کے یارا
دہائی ہے
ارے یہ تو میرے حسین کے گھر کے صفائی ہے ارے پھر نیزے کو پکڑ کے یہ بولی بشور و شین آغوش میں کنیز کی اب آؤ یا حسین چھاتی سے سر لگاؤں تمہارا تو
آئے
ارے منہ کو کلیجہ آتا
ہے
زہرا کے
نور
ارے سینے پہ میرے ہائے چھری غام کی جلد آئیے کہ جان میرے اب نکلتی ہے ارے بال اتفاق کہتے ہیں راوی بسط بکا نیزے سے اترا روتا ہوا سر حسین کا شیریں نے دوڑ کر اسے آغوش میں ارے بس منہ سے اتنا نکلا کہ آقا
تیرے فدا
ارے اللہ رے و غش اللہ رے و عشق عجب کام سرور کے منہ پہ منہ کو رکھا اور مر گئی سر لے کے شیخ کا شام کو
September to 11 September, Hujjatul Islam Maulana Hamza Sodagar Qibla recite the Majlis in English. آج کی مجلس جناب علی عباس نقوی اور جعفر نقوی نے اسپانسر کی ہے، اس لیے ان کے خاندان کے مرحومین اور خاص طور سے ان کے والد اور والدہ کے لیے سورہ فاتحہ. آج نوحہ علی نقوی پڑھیں گے. ٹمارو یعنی تھرسڈے 12 سپٹمبر نماز مغربین 7:40 8 PM حجت الاسلام مولانا حمزہ صدر قبلہ recite the دعائے کمیل. 8:30, Salam after Marsiya and Majlis. I will request to Hujjatul Islam, Hamza, Sodagar Karbala to address the Majlis.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين المنتجبين لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. For the hastening and the return of our Imam, let's recite the salawat. For his health and well-being, let's recite the second one louder. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Inshallah, each and every one of us becomes a true and close companion of our Imam. Let's recite the third one even louder. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. The theme that we said we're going to have in mind and discuss over the course of these few nights is Imam Zayn al-Abidin salamullah alayhi and the aftermath of Karbala. While we focus on Karbala and what the Imam and his family accomplished in Karbala, and we see Imam Zayn al-Abidin salamullah alayhi in Karbala as well, it is important to, at times at least, visit and discuss and think of what Imam Zayn al-Abidin did given the conditions of the aftermath of Karbala. This is important in many ways, the most basic of which is that this is our Imam and we need to know who he was, what he did. And once we know what each of the Imams did, they said, they performed, then we can start looking at our own times, our own lives, what's happening around us, and when we see parallels between their time, our time, what they went through, what we're going through, then we can see how we are supposed to be imitating and following the example of those Imams. The first thing to discuss and to try to understand is what is meant by the aftermath of Karbala. I think there's some misconceptions regarding the aftermath of Karbala that need to be picked out and we need to correct in our understanding. There are two areas when we discuss the aftermath of Karbala that we shouldn't lose sight of. If we see one side, if we see one aspect, if we see one dimension, we should also see the other dimension, the other aspect, and not only see it from the first perspective. One aspect, one dimension that is generally seen, but it's not a complete picture, is a dimension of the failure of those who called Imam al-Hussein to come to Karbala and They said, we will join you, we will help you, we will assist you. The fruits are ready, the plains are ready, the land is ready. We are ready, our swords are ready for you, and so on and so forth. They failed to deliver. And this is very clear. I think this is something that's focused on many times, discussed. Plenty of speakers, scholars have discussed. And obviously that's true. There's no question that is true. The reason why Karbala ended the way it did is because they failed to go and assist the Imam. They said, we pledge that your life is before ours, to his representative Muslim ibn Aqil. And then one morning, everyone's behind Muslim ibn Aqil. By nighttime, Salatul Isha, no one's behind Muslim ibn Aqil. Another congregation is formed, led by Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad gets all those same people behind him praying the Jama'ah prayer. Well, this is a failure. Along with this dimension, this aspect, within it, we see the massacre of Karbala. This was a big massacre, a very severe instance of the greatest people on the face of the earth being treated in the way they were. And this is also part of the same dimension, the same perspective, to see how when they didn't assist, the Imam who is oppressed, Mazloom, left alone, Gharib, is treated the way he is by Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, who was never with the Imam, Umar ibn Sa'd, and the rest of the people who were there. Along with it, again, another piece of that, from the same perspective, looking at the same aspect, is how the family of the Imam was treated after the Shahada of the Imam, being taken to Kufa, from there, from city to Sham, showing off their victory in their own mind. This is one perspective, one aspect, one dimension of what happened in Karbala and the aftermath of it. The aftermath of this, from this perspective, is failure, is loss of important lives. If we only see Karbala in this way, from this angle, from this perspective, and the aftermath of it to look so gloomy, it's hard to imagine what the next Imam is left with on one hand. It's hard to imagine any victory for Imam al-Hussein. Once you start looking at it as only that, it's really hard to say, why did Imam al-Hussein go through that? Was that really suicide? Some, unfortunately, perhaps less educated, less knowledgeable, or less understanding of the language speakers have used even that word. Was that really, if there's no objective, if there's no outcome, if you're not accomplishing anything, if your blood being spilled doesn't accomplish anything, then don't spill it. That's exactly why Imam al-Mujtaba salamullah alayhi didn't go towards war. If he would have gone towards war, towards battle with Muawiyah at the time, it wouldn't have accomplished anything. It was easier. Imam al-Mujtaba is seeing so much betrayal, is seeing so much misbehavior, so much wrong from the people that are supposed to be closest to him. It's easier to just leave this life. He has everything waiting for him in the hereafter. Why stay in this world? Let's just fight, let them get rid of us. No, but that's not going to accomplish anything. That's what is called suicide. If our depiction of what happens in Karbala only focuses on people not coming, not joining, not sacrificing, not being willing to sacrifice, not helping the Imam, not coming to Karbala, or even not allowing the Imam to end up in Karbala. If they would have stopped Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi when he was still with Yazid's camp, if they hadn't stopped him, or if they had stopped him rather, then the Imam wouldn't have even ended up in Karbala. And whatever, if we only look at this, then it's hard to really imagine what was the accomplishment of Imam al-Hussein. There's a statement Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayhi used, and he repeatedly used this line. not just as a slogan or a memory of the past or talking about Imam al-Hussein at his time or any of that. Rather, something that is a lesson for today, for the things that happen. You know, there's a lot of blood that has been shed since the advent of the revolution. In the course of the revolution occurring, post-revolution, right after it, there's issues, there's separatists in Kurdistan, separatists in Khuzestan, separatists in Azerbaijan, in Baluchistan, in Turkmenistan, or the Turkmen region of Iran, northeast of Iran, all these things, and then 8-year war, and then after that, assassinations, this, that, the other, and then Syria occurs. You've seen what happened, the Lebanon War 2006, you saw how many men, women, and children, innocent people, all these people, all this blood is being shed, right? This lesson from Karbala, Imam Khomeini used to use this term, پیروزی خون بر شمشیر, the victory of blood over the sword. Blood is shed. It seems apparently that the person and the people that were defeated in the battle, they were defeated. They lost the battle. They were killed. Their family was taken as captives. Apparently, who's the victor? Who won the battle? Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, la'natullah alayh, Umar ibn Sa'd, la'natullah alayh, Shimr ibn Dhil Jawshan, la'natullah alayh, Yazid ibn Muawiyah, la'natullah alayh. Seems they won the battle. But the blood of Hussein, the way he did it, what he set out to accomplish, how he did it, the decisions he made, the blood of Hussein won. Yazid was defeated. Ubaydullah was defeated. Now we have to try to analyze this aspect, this dimension, and see that aftermath of Karbala. What did Imam al-Hussein accomplish in Karbala? Imam Zayn al-Abidin salamullah alayhi is the next Imam. He's going to build off of where Imam al-Hussein left off. Just like Imam al-Hussein built off of where Imam al-Mujtaba salamullah alayhi left off. What's the aftermath of Karbala? The positive side. The accomplishment of Imam al-Hussein. What is that? What did he do? Recite salawat, please. Imam al-Hussein salamullah alayhi, in putting himself in that condition, in bringing his family, and the family continuing from there, being taken as captives, the objective was, as another great scholar has presented, Ayatollah Khamenei, may Allah protect him and give him a long life, he's mentioned that this was like a giving. You know, when a person is, God forbid, we're in conditions that, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of this. People go through treatment in the hospital, and then they get to a state where, God forbid, their heart stops beating, and you need to shock them. A person who's dying, their heart is not beating, you try to shock them to give them a heartbeat. Okay. Imam al-Hussein was giving the ummah of the Prophet a shock to get that heart beating again. An ummah that's dying. That's how the direction was. All the organs are going to start to fail. The heart, when it stops beating, then all the other organs are eventually going to stop. You got to have the heart beating. This is a nation that's moving in that direction, and the heart is barely beating, or it's gone through a heart attack. That's the state of the ummah at the time of Imam al-Hussein. This shahada, the news of the shahada of Hussein, the killing of Hussein, that very news, that very negative, ugly, unfortunate scene of Hussein, that the enemies of Hussein were trying to celebrate by taking the family of Hussein and showing them to everyone, that very image was the shock factor. The perpetrators did not realize what they're doing. They thought, Yazid thought, oh, this is the only enemy that I have left, the only one who's standing against me, the only one who's not willing to pledge allegiance, so on and so forth. We'll get rid of him, that'll be the end of it. لعبت هاشم بالملك. Banu Hashim were playing with government, nothing is true, none of the wahy, none of the, nothing, no revelation, nothing came. That was their view. He expressed it, apparently. He expressed it, it's poetry from Yazid there. They thought, okay, this is the end. This is the last breath. We're killing off Islam. Imam al-Hussein knows that the condition is not that the whole body is dead, the body is brain dead, all the organs are malfunctioned, there's nothing left, and then it's all gone. No. Other things are functional. There's still elements of faith there. It needs a shock. Imam al-Hussein said, okay, I am not going to pledge allegiance. I will not sign a treaty. Imam al-Hussein signed a treaty with Muawiyah. He signed a treaty. He was willing, with, under the imamah of Imam al-Mujtaba, together though, they signed a treaty with Muawiyah. Imam al-Hussein this time said, there's no treaty, there's no nothing. No pledge of allegiance, no bay'ah, nothing. If you want to kill me, فَيَا سُيُوفْ خُذِينِ. Swords, come and take me. This shahada is a shock factor. The ummah of the Prophet, there are elements within it that can, if the body is already gone, no matter how many times you shock that body, it's not going to come back. There has to be some readiness for the body to come back. Imam al-Hussein recognized that. And the only thing that's going to revive this dead body of the ummah that's dying, in the process of dying, is this shock, the killing of Hussein, the news of the killing of Hussein, especially the way it was. And again, the enemies did this by their own hands. They took Zainab salamullah alayha. They took the head of Imam al-Hussein. They paraded them thinking that this is celebration. They don't realize when people come to know this is the grandson of the Prophet, when Imam Zayn al-Abidin in Sham stands up, gives and delivers that very fiery sermon, at which time the whole assembly, the whole celebration, the whole scene is now changing to something different. They want to silence the Imam. They want to shut him up. They're like, oh, adhan time has come in. People who don't care about adhan, or mu'adhin, please call the adhan. Why? They want to silence Imam Zayn al-Abidin. His talk is that effective in Sham. Imam Zayn al-Abidin takes advantage of that as well. He says, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, the mu'adhin. Imam Zayn al-Abidin shouts, Yazid, is this Muhammad your grandfather or mine? People know this is the grandfather of Hussein ibn Ali. This is the grandson of the Prophet whose head is being put on a golden plate in front of the feet of the Mal'un Yazid. This is a shock. In Sham, things changed. There are accounts, initially when we saw some of these accounts, we're like, is this really true? And yeah, it makes perfect sense. They say Yazid came to the household of the Prophet and said, where do you guys want to go? I'll provide all the means to wherever you guys want to go. And they said, we want to go back to Karbala. And they went there for Arba'in, right? Why did Yazid do that? Is that really true? Yazid doesn't care about the... Yes, it is true. And the reason is the scene changed completely. Yazid thought he's going to bring them, he's going to celebrate this great victory. It turned into people questioning, what the hell are you doing? Are you the Khalifa? This is the grandson of the Prophet. This is how you're treating them? You said they're Kharijis. Now this companion, that companion, who the people of Sham know, they may not know the face of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, but this companion, the other companion, Imam Zayn al-Abidin tells them, they go around, this is the family of the Prophet, this is the Ahlul Bayt that the Quran says, إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. I'm not asking for any type of reward except for being kind to my qurba. These are the qurba, they've slaughtered them, people. And the scene changes. Yes, of course, now he's going to try to change things up. He's going to try to make people feel like, and therefore you've seen, and you've probably heard, Yazid started blaming it on Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. So it wasn't me, I didn't tell him to do this. Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad did this. Of course it was you. Your mal'oon self said to do that. This is riya. He was saying these things, he was lying about it to make people feel like he wanted to distance himself from the crime. Now, it's not a matter of celebration any longer. This was a matter of celebration. In a matter of a few days of the Ahlul Bayt in Sham, and on the way to Sham, the ummah of the Prophet gets news of the slaughter of the grandson of the Prophet. This affects and shocks the ummah. Even before they arrived in Sham, the city of Mosul, you heard, the city that is not known to be kind to Shia, not that they're against, but they're not known to be kind to Shia. It was the city that fell to Daesh, the major city that when they attacked Iraq, the major city, the biggest city they were able to take over was Mosul. It says when they were taking the family of the Prophet, the family of Imam al-Hussein salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi towards Sham, they took the long route because they wanted to go to these major cities and show off their victory. News got to Mosul. Mosul came to know who these people are. They say, we don't want you to parade them in our city. They still didn't fight Yazid at this point, but they weren't willing to allow the family of the Prophet to be paraded as captives of war, the heads of the grandson of the Prophet and his family being paraded in the streets of Mosul. People received that, the shock that Imam al-Hussein wanted. This has happened. The after effects of that shock, even though some of them, for example, the Tawabun, there's an instance, those who didn't participate in Karbala, they had called on Imam al-Hussein, they felt the guilt after Karbala, and they went to fight Yazid, 4,000 people, they were all slaughtered. Okay. It was wrong, it didn't really make up for their lack of participation in Karbala. Those 4,000 people being in Karbala, it would have changed everything. It wasn't entirely right, but it was still a positive effect of the shock had happened. If Imam al-Hussein during his time, before his Shahada, wasn't able to get 4,000 people to come to Karbala, with his Shahada, he got 4,000 plus people, not just 4,000. This was one event. There is a certain level of vigilance, a certain level of awareness, public awareness, that Imam al-Hussein created right after and with and because of the massacre of Ashura and Karbala. The news of it getting out. Okay, I keep saying that because that also involves Imam Zayn al-Abidin and the lady Zainab salamullahi alayha. But it's also related to Imam al-Hussein because Imam al-Hussein designed it in that way. When they asked him in Medina, why are you taking the women and children? You want to go by yourself? You're going to be slaughtered. Why are you taking women and children? He said, Allah wants to see them as captive. Why? God enjoys them being tortured? No. Because that captivity is part of the mission of Hussein. Part of Karbala is for them to go through the hardship of being paraded in the cities while they watch the heads of their beloved before them. Above all, Imam al-Hussein reciting Quran on a spear. The difficulty of seeing that, speaking what Imam al-Hussein wants them to speak. This is sending the right message, explaining what really happened, showing to the people what really happened, creating that show. This is, in our discussion, the most important element in the aftermath of Karbala that I want to depict and I want to show in briefly, of course, obviously. I don't know, hopefully this isn't the first time you've heard it. It was a reminder, hopefully. And if it was, think about it, and hopefully you'll hear more about it, read into it, look at, try to find material on this. The awareness that is created that the government is moving in the name of Islam is moving in a very, very wrong direction. It cannot be trusted. This awareness causes people to look for alternatives. Any alim, any speaker that is promoting this government, now people are questioning, do we listen to this person or not? They're looking for alternatives. And therefore you have people coming, searching for that alternative. One of the students of Imam Zayn al-Abidin salamullah alayhi is Abu Khalid al-Kabuli. Abu Khalid, as his name goes, he is Kabuli. Kabul is in Afghanistan. That's on the borders pretty much of the Muslim empire at the time on the east. It's way out there compared to Medina, even compared to Karbala. It's way out there. It's very far. And they're relatively newer Muslims. These are relatively new conquests that have occurred. Abu Khalid makes his way to Medina in search of an alternative. Initially, he ends up with Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah, the brother of Imam Zayn, the brother of Imam al-Hussein, salamullah alayh, someone who unfortunately was claiming imamah after Imam al-Hussein, despite knowing that's not the case, someone who didn't participate in Karbala, someone who objected Imam al-Hussein going there, all these wrongs that he did, is now claiming imamah, and he has a following. He has a following. Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya, with this claim, is able to draw in one of the people who is seeking an alternative and looking for the truth, Abu Khalid al-Kabuli. Of course, since Abu Khalid, rahmatullah alayhi, this great man that is less known to us, Abu Khalid was a real truth seeker. He was seeking the truth. And therefore, although he spent time with Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya, and according to the account in the Rijal books, it is explained he spent years with Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya, but he started having doubts, and therefore he went to him once, and he said, I swear by Allah, tell me the truth, are you really the Imam or not? And of course, Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya has lied already. He should have just said, yeah, I am. But because he was seeking the truth, Allah put on the tongue of Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya to say that, no, I am not at that point. And the Imam is Ali ibn al-Hussein. And from that point onwards, that's when Abu Khalid transfers over. He moves over to the camp of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, starts studying under Imam Zayn al-Abidin, becomes a student, an alim, a spiritual guide, a guided person, an arif, and in a very unusual way, Imam Zainul Abidin salamullah alayhi sends him back to his region, somewhere around Kabul. The main city that was known in his area is Kabul, because many times the cities that people were known as being from were not necessarily the city they were born in. It was sometimes a smaller city, smaller town, village around it, but the major city was mentioned. So Kabul might not have been his hometown, maybe some of the villages, towns around it, but that region, that area. He is sent over there and he starts his work over there. The result we see decades later. The vengeance of the blood of Imam al-Hussein starting from Khurasan are the people that are trained by Abu Khalid al-Kabuli, rahmatullah alayh. Now, this is pretty much the aftermath, a little bit of what Imam Zayn al-Abidin did. We want to discuss what Imam Zayn al-Abidin did. This was a historic account, Abu Khalid. We're going to deal with this man a little more. He is an important person in that period in terms of what Imam Zayn al-Abidin did. It's important for us to look at what Imam Zayn al-Abidin did in this context. Not instead of looking at Imam Zayn al-Abidin in the aftermath of Karbala with a lot of tragedies, with a lot of grief, crying, ill, always just remembering Karbala, just doing dua, sitting at home. No, Imam Zayn al-Abidin salamullah alayhi is Ali ibn al-Hussein. He is the son of the same Hussein that said, I will never pledge allegiance to Yazid. He is the same Hussein. He's not just the son of Hussein. He's the same Hussein that was willing to have his head on a spear and not go against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. Imam Zayn al-Abidin is very active, very proactive, very involved. In fact, as we have hadith about all our Imams, they ask, you've heard the title that we think is the title of the 12th Imam, Qa'imu Ali Muhammad, the upriser of Ali Muhammad. We have hadith, they kept asking, who is the Qa'im? Who's the Imam said, all of us are Qa'im. Which of the Imams is not Qa'im? You think Imam al-Mujtaba salamullah alayh, who signed the treaty, he was not Qa'im? He sat? No, he sat from government. He didn't sit afterwards, do nothing at home. He laid down the foundations of Karbala. If it wasn't for what Imam al-Mujtaba did over the course of those 10 years, there would be no Karbala on the way it happened. Imam al-Mujtaba was laying the foundation. Imam Zayn al-Abidin is also very active. He carries the flag of Imamah, the banner of Imamah, for those years and hands it over to Imam al-Baqir salamullah alayh. It's important for us to look at this period, and having seen that no, Imam al-Hussein accomplished something, and Imam Zayn al-Abidin is not just commemorating the grief and remembering. No, he is the Imam. He's following. What is it that he did in the aftermath of Karbala? Tonight, briefly, I don't think we have much time. Maybe, hopefully, this will only take 10 minutes. We'll have a total of 40 minutes. One of the first things that Imam Zayn al-Abidin salamullah alayh did was what we already mentioned, and I'll elaborate on this a little more. And that is keeping the memory of Karbala alive. This started right after Ashura. Right after Ashura, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, and the one who is seen, of course, leading. There's an interesting account I found from the mother of the 11th Imam, the grandmother of the 12th Imam. Salamullah alayha. There's a lot of great women we have in our history that we don't hear too much of. We haven't. She says, there's an account, she was in Medina when the Imam went into occultation. And she mentions there, it's a long story, I don't want to get into that. She says that Zainab salamullahi alayha was the figure, the seen figure, the to-go-to figure in person after Imam al-Hussein to protect Imam Zayn al-Abidin. The leader is actually whom? Imam Zayn al-Abidin. But who do you see on the front line? Zainab salamullahi alayha. Who is the one that speaks out more than Imam Zayn al-Abidin? Zainab salamullahi alayha. Who is seen more? Zainab salam. Imam Zayn al-Abidin, in order to protect his life, Zainab salam. But who is the Imam? Imam Zayn al-Abidin is. Who's the leader? Imam Zayn al-Abidin is. Zainab and Imam, under the leadership of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, the first thing Imam Zayn al-Abidin does is to make sure that he keeps the memory of Karbala as it was alive. Get word out. Get people to know about this. And this was not something that he was going to do just on the way to Sham and on the way to Karbala and from Karbala to Medina, upon entrance to Medina. This was not something that he was only going to do over there. He continued that. If you hear that Imam Zayn al-Abidin would remember Karbala every time they would slaughter a lamb, he said, have you given it water? He said, yes, of course. So why are you asking? Of course we're going to. He said, well, my father was slaughtered in Karbala with a thirsty mouth. Why did Imam Zayn al-Abidin do this? He would purposely sit under the sun when shade was available. He would sit under the sun. Come say, please, Yabna Rasulullah. Everybody knew this is in Medina at least people knew. Please take a seat under the shade. Imam Zayn al-Abidin said, no. My father's body was left under the sun for 3 days. Well, why is he doing it? Is he just remembering it to feel? No, he's reminding people. Every opportunity, remind people. In fact, they made it a culture. The Imam, starting with the first person who established the culture of Aza, is Imam Zayn al-Abidin, salamullah alayhi. Imam Zayn al-Abidin established this culture, and it continued on the next Imam and the following Imam, and all these ahadith that you hear, to the extent that Imam al-Sadiq teaches Alqamah, he says, this is the ziyarah you do on the day of Ashura in Karbala. Then, because that's what Alqamah asked. Alqamah asked, I want to go and visit Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura. What should I say? Imam al-Sadiq, according to the account, explains to him what words he should use. That becomes ziyarat Ashura. Then the Imam, without Alqamah asking, the Imam says, even if you're not in Karbala, read this ziyarah. Even if it's not the day of Ashura, read this. In other words, every day, any day of the year, read ziyarat Ashura. Thursday night, where do you go for ziyarah? Imam al-Hussein. The night of Qadr, where do you go? Imam al-Hussein. 15th of Sha'ban, the birth of Imam al-Asr, our 12th Imam, Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, where do we go? Karbala, Imam al-Hussein. The day of Eid, remember Imam al-Hussein. Every occasion, remember Hussein. They established this culture. Why did they establish this culture? Why did Imam al-Sadiq salamullah alayhi invite a poet? The culture of poetry for Karbala is introduced by the Ahlul Bayt, encouraged by the Ahlul Bayt. Imam al-Sadiq finds out the poet is in town. He calls him over. He sets up a stage, in a sense, in our language. And he asks him to recite. And he has the family, the women, everyone come, listen, cry, and then pay the reciter. Imam al-Sadiq salamullah alayhi did this. Why did they create this culture? Because remembrance of Karbala is continuing Karbala. In what way? What do we continue Karbala? Did my head get chopped off? No. What does it mean to continue Karbala? Imam al-Hussein salamullah alayhi went to destroy and eradicate injustice. He went to establish what God said his grandfather was sent to establish. In the Quran, God says, هُوَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلَ رَسُولَهُ بِالْهُدَى وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُشْرِكُونَ or وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا. Two different versions in the Quran. One in Surah Fath, there's the other version in another chapter. The first part is the same. He is the one that sent his messenger bil-huda, with guidance, وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ, the religion of truth, لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ, in order for this to prevail over all others. Everything else is injustice. All legal systems that do not stem from Islam, do not come from Islam, the law that is supposed to be enforcing justice, that is supposed to be creating social justice, the law itself will create injustice. The law itself is a manifestation of injustice, and the one who enforces it, or those who enforce it, will be enforcing injustice. Imam al-Hussein salamullah alayhi, when he says, I'm going to revive the message of my grandfather and correct and reform the nation, he was bringing the nation back on the path of this, establishing this justice, this deen al-haqq on the face of the earth. Imam al-Hussein, with his blood, he established that. He started it with remembering him, crying for him, doing poetry, reciting poetry about what happened there, who did what, for Islam, for Allah. They sacrificed, creating those emotions in us, giving us the teachings, the understanding, the knowledge that we need to sacrifice like Hussein did for that same purpose. Listen to the call of Hussein. Do you not see that the truth is not being acted upon? Every year, not once a year, not just Muharram, every Thursday, every Eid al-Fitr, every Eid al-Adha, every night of Qadr. All these occasions, Hussein should be mentioned. Shed tears for him. You keep remembering the words of Hussein. Do you not see haqq is not being acted upon? Don't you see it around you? Next door, do you not see it? On the street, do you not see it? Is this haqq? They don't care about the rest of the world dying from this virus. They don't care if even their own blood, white people in Europe, die from this virus. They stole masks from other nations who would purchase it from American companies. These are documented. Do you not see this? You remember Imam al-Hussein, you see all this happening. Do you not see what's happening in Afghanistan, what they did for 20 years? And what they're doing now? Just leave, man. Just leave. Leave it alone. You think if the Americans would leave Afghanistan alone, all this would happen after? No, they haven't left it alone. They took their troops out. They took their troops out. This is really the great Satan. This is, as Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayhi said, any problem in the world, anything you want to shout against this great Satan, the United States of America, this government right here. Okay. That's what it is. That's the reality of the situation. Do you not see that? You remember Hussein in his call that even if I'm slaughtered, I will not give in to this. So that when you see this, they come and say, oh, they're going to knock on your door. They're going to say this, they're going to say that. They're going to send FBI to you. They're going to stop you on the border. They're going to sanction the organization that we sent our students to study under. They make them a terrorist organization. Oh, university? Jama'atul Mustafa is now a terrorist organization? When they do that, you have two choices. You have the Husseini route that you beat your chest for, and you have the Yazidi route, or you have the silent route. Join the tyrant, or join the ones who said, well, you know, we're going to protect our families. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Let Hussein be slaughtered in the plains of Karbala. The memory of Hussein, the reminders of Hussein, the tears for Hussein, the beating of the chest for Hussein, is to keep this spirit alive, to spread this spirit throughout the earth. If the people of the world come to know this Hussein, learn the path of this Hussein, rise for the same cause that this Hussein rose for, and are willing to sacrifice the way this Hussein did, no tyrant can stand against the people of the world. That's why the culture of Hussein needs to spread. The name of Hussein isn't just those few letters that you can put up and then put some flowers with it, put something else, and then make the people feel like, oh, somebody was just killed 1400 years ago. Well, there's a lot of people that have been killed throughout history. No, he wasn't a weak, beat-up person that was slaughtered, his family slaughtered, oh, boo-hoo, we cry. No, he was the most courageous man on earth. The strongest person on earth. Abul Fadl al-Abbas, as great as he is no match for the courage of Hussein. Abul Fadl al-Abbas is who he is because of Hussein. With firmness and courage he stood up. The companions of Hussein, they're outnumbered. They're less than 100. There's 34,000 on that side. They stand up, they introduce themselves. I am such and such, son of such and such. I'm coming forward. Whoever wants to come, I will take you to hell. How in the world, if, forget 34,000, if all of you stand and want to kill me, I'll just run away. I don't have the courage. I don't have the guts to stand here. 34,000 people, somebody swinging their sword, the other is throwing their spear, showing off their spear, making noise with it, just to remind this is who we are. 34,000, less than 100 here. It should have taken an hour finishing this group of people. Half a day, they came out, they caused fear in the hearts of the enemy. These are not weak people that just, oh, we cry for them. No. They had a mission. They were courageous, they were brave, they were capable. They were intelligent, more intelligent than the cowards. And us crying for them is crying for the atrocity against them because of our love for the greatness in them. I want that greatness to start developing here and here in our communities and globally. This is Ashura, this is Karbala. This is what Imam Zayn al-Abidin, with establishing the remembrance of Karbala, is doing. This is why it takes a few decades relatively for the downfall of the Umayyads. You know, the Umayyads fell. 50, 60 years later, the Umayyads fell. Their dynasty was extended. Why? Because of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, because of Imam al-Hussein. But after him, if that would not have continued, if people didn't know what happened, if the reminders weren't there, if the culture wasn't created so that people constantly remember what happened in Karbala, Umayyads would have ruled for not 1,000 months in total, but 1,000 years perhaps. We hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us more understanding and gives us that Husayni courage, that Husayni fearlessness, the spirit that makes you stand against anything without any worry, whether we live or we die. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah. Sallallahu alayk. Ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alaykum. Ya Ahla Bayt النبوة وموضع الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة ومهبط الوحي ومعدن الرحمة وخزان العلم ومنتهى الحلم. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you, my beloved Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you, my beloved oppressed Ahlul Bayt. Sallallahu alayk ya Aba Abdullah. Sallallahu alayk ya Mazlum. أيها الشهيد بكربلاء عطشانا. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you, my beloved Imam al-Hussein. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you, my beloved oppressed Imam, the Imam who was slaughtered by the Euphrates while his mouth was dry of thirst. Ruhi fadak ya Mawlai, ya Aba Abdullah. I don't know where exactly your family is these days. They have probably departed Sham, moving towards Karbala as Arba'een is approaching. But Ya Aba Abdullah, you know better. There was one person who stayed back. Your little daughter could not take your absence any longer. Ruhi fidaki. She cried for her father so much. Some have said every time she remembered her father, she would get hit. She would see her father's head on spears. Oh, auntie, is that my father? I want to see him closer. One night in Sham, it was too much for her. She cried so much, the Mal'oon heard. He said, what's she wanting? They said she wants her father. He said, well, why don't you send her his head? Imagine Imam al-Husayn's daughter, while she's crying, they give her a plate covered, she removes it. Oh Father, where have you been? Why is your beard so red? What are these scars on your forehead? What's this dry blood on your lips? Oh Father, I cannot stand this any longer. Can you please take me with you? Every time I saw the little children in Sham holding the hands of their fathers, I longed for you. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون يا حسين.
سلام اس پر کے جو قیدی بھی ہے بیمار بھی ہو سلام اس پر کے جو قیدی بھی ہے پاؤں میں ہے آبلے اور آبلوں میں خار بھی ہو سلام اس پر کے جو قیدی بھی ہے بیمار بھی ہو سلام اس پر کے جو آنکھ میں آنسو اور زخم جگر میں ہونٹوں پہ ردا کا نوحہ کرب و بلا سے ہائے شام تلک وہ کانٹوں پہ سفر کرتا تھا بے ردا سیدانیہ اس پر ستم بازار بھی ہو سلام اس پر کے جو بیمار بھی ہو سلام اس پر کے جو قیدی بھی ہے دیکھنے والی آنکھوں نے دیکھا اس راہ میں یہ بھی منظر ایک مسافر پابند سفر ہے خود اپنی لاش اٹھا کر یہ امام وقت ہے اور قافلہ سالار بھی ہو سلام اس پر کے جو قیدی بھی ہے بیمار بھی ہو سلام اس پر کے جو خون رگوں کا یا غیرت ہاشم کہتی ہے جھکا لے سر کو توق سلاسل کیا قید کریں گے ہائے صبر کے اس پیکر کو سر اٹھائے کس طرح ہے راہ میں بازار بھی ہو سلام اس پر کے جو قید ہو سلام دیکھ کے زینب سجاد کی حالت فریاد یہی کرتی تھی میرا یقین ہے ایمان ہے میرا اے شام کے بے کس قیدی روئیں گے تجھ پر صدا مسند بھی اور دستار بھی ہو سلام اس پر کے جو ہو سلام اس پر کے جو قریبی ہے بیٹھا کہیں پر جب تھک کے مسافر 40 شبوں کا جاگا نیند جو آئی بے کس قیدی کو دروں سے جگایا جاتا دیکھ کر رویا فلک اور زینب لاچار بھی ہو سلام اس پر کے جو قیدی بھی ہے بیمار بھی ہو سلام اس پر کے جو قیدی بھی ہے نو کس نا پر ہے باپ کا سر ہے اس بات پہ دل بے قابو بے چادر ہے ناموس پیمبر ماحول شرابی ہر سو خون روئے ساربا اور سید ابرار بھی ہو سلام اس پر کے جو قیدی بھی ہے بیمار بھی ہو سلام اس پر کے جو قیدی بھی ہے بیمار بھی یا حسین
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم السلام علیکم نبی اللہ السلام علیکم یا رسول اللہ السلام علیکم یا حبیب اللہ السلام علیکم یا باعث الہدا السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکم یا ابا عبداللہ السلام علیکم یا ابن رسول اللہ السلام علیکم یا ابن عامر المؤمنین ومن سید وسین السلام علیکم یا فاطمہ زہرا سید نساء عالمین السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکم قریب و غربا السلام علیکم یا معون ضعفاء والفقراء السلام علیکم انیس نفوس السلام علیکم سلطان عرب العجم یا عالی موسیزہ الراج قریب القضاء السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکم صاحبہ سے زمان علمان علماء زمان السلام علیکم شریک القرآن السلام علیکم ماظر ایمان السلام علیکم کامل کفر طغیان السلام علیکم دافع زمردوان نزل اللہ فرجک وصال اللہ مخرجک وظہورک السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم اللہم کل ولیک الحجت ابن الحسن صلواتک علیہ وعلی آبائے فی هذه الساعة وفی کل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك طوعا وتمتعوا فيها طويلا